All right. This is my studying stream dedicated to the book Beyond Good and Evil. I already gone through half of the preface. It took me almost 7 hours, like 6.5 hours. And now I'm going to start from reciting the preface since I memorized it, and I just want to keep memorizing everything what I'm going to read. So, preface. Supposing that truth is a woman, what then? Is there no ground for suspecting that all philosophers, insofar as they have been dogmatists, have failed to understand women? That terrible seriousness and clumsy importunity with which they have usually pet their addresses to truth has been only unskillful and unseemly methods for winning a woman? Certainly she has never allowed herself to be won. And at present every kind of dogma stands with sad and discouraged mien, if indeed it stands at all, for there are scoffers who maintain that it has fallen, that all dogma lies in the ground, nay more, that it is at its last gasp. But to speak seriously, there are good grounds for hoping that all dogmatizing philosophy, whatever solemn, whatever conclusive and decided airs it has assumed, might have been only a noble pluralism and tyranny. And probably the time is at hand when it will be once and again understood what has actually sufficed for the basis of such imposing and absolute philosophical edifices that the dogmatists have hitherto reared. Perhaps some popular superstition of immemorial times, like soul superstition, which in the form of subject or ego superstition has not yet ceased doing mischief. Perhaps some play upon words, a deception on the part of grammar, or an audacious generalization of very restricted, very personal, very human, all too human facts. The philosophy of the dogmatists, it is to be hoped, was only a promise for thousands of years afterwards, as was astrology in still earlier times, in service of which perhaps more gold, labor, acuteness, and patience have been spent than on any actual science hitherto. We owe to it and its super-terrestrial pretensions in Asia, in Egypt, the great style of architecture. It seems that in order to inscribe themselves upon the heart of humanity with everlasting claims, all great things have first to wander about the earth as enormous and awe-inspiring caricatures. The philosophy of the dogmatists have been a caricature of this kind. For instance, the Vedanta doctrine in Asia or Platonism in Europe. Let us not be ungrateful to it, although it must certainly be confessed that the worst, the most tiresome, and the most dangerous of errors hitherto has been a dogmatist error, namely Plato's invention of pure spirit and good in itself. But now, when it has been surmounted and Europe can again draw breath freely and at least enjoy healthier sleep, we whose duty is wakefulness itself are the heirs of all the strength that the struggle against this error has fostered. All right, so this is it now. Let me continue reading the book. So I've got I memorized all this part, like from here to where? Like to here, yeah. Now I'm gonna read another paragraph or a few sentences. Talk about it for a couple of hours. Well, ideally it's gonna be 90 minutes, but probably I'm gonna speak more, and we'll see. And then I'll memorize another few sentences and see how it's gonna go, how it's gonna grow. Anyway, so let me read the next sentence. It amounted to the very inversion of truth and the denial of the perspective the fundamental condition of life, to speak of spirit and the good as Plato spoke of them. Indeed, one might ask, as a physician, how did such a malady attack that finest product of antiquity, Plato? Had the wicked Socrates really corrupted him? Was Socrates, after all, a corrupter of youth and deserved his hemlock? All right, so let's take this sentence. It amounted to the very inversion of truth, the denial of the perspective, the fundamental condition of life, to speak of spirit and the good as Plato spoke of them. Okay, now Nietzsche makes fun of Plato, saying that all these ideas, the good in itself, pure spirit, it's not just problematic, it's, you know, it's hard to believe that a healthy individual would create such kind of fantasies, like, you know, let's say afterlife, since the pure spirit basically means that it's not something related to this life, like to this body, is just the thing in itself. It exists forever. And if you believe in this pure spirit, you basically deny deny life. So you dismiss life, you say that life is terrible. And Nietzsche makes fun of Plato by emphasizing that to speak about the good and the spirit, which were, again, they, like, Nietzsche wants to say that Plato was making a kind of afterlife. He was making, like, the good for him wasn't what was going on in this life. It was about, like, preparing for the next life. So Plato believed in kind of pure spirit, which was something beyond this life. And all his philosophy was an attempt to create a kind of ideology which states that the good is beyond, like, this life experience. So in this, the pure spirit, like the spirit, the soul, is also about something else. It's not about, like, you can't achieve it here. So you may do philosophy, you may, practice dialectic and think about pure forms, but it's still, like, when you think about the spirit, it's like to be alive is to be in a kind of prison. And for Plato, his famous analogy about the cave, so, like, everybody who is alive, they are in a cave and they haven't seen sun, the real sun, in the real world. And the real world for Plato, it's not the world of everyday life. It's not the world where there's, like, some, actions. It's more about the world of metaphysical world, which belongs to a different domain, different, whatever. It's not here, and it's better than our world. So it's like an ideal world. And Nietzsche, he kind of make fun, saying that Socrates corrupted Plato, and well, now he that's quite interesting to think about. Like, what I'm doing now, well, basically reading the article, the book Beyond Good and Evil, and I have a conversation with Nietzsche. So for me, I was thinking about it yesterday and a few days before as well, but a little bit yesterday I was thinking about it more. And for me, it's like, when you have a conversation with, like, when you read the book, what's actually going on? I'm just looking at the text and I'm trying to decipher this text. I try to understand what is written here, like what kind of ideas are presented here, what kind of emotions, what kind of experience. And by trying to understand, I have a real, like conversation. So when we think about the conversation, like real conversation, what's going on? There's a few people and they share their emotions, their thoughts, and they like, communicate. Somebody says something, somebody else responds, and it goes on and on. And the same, you may take reading every book and studying philosophy as a communication with these philosophers. So they're not present, then they can't give you feedback, but still you may give feedback to them. So you just read a sentence and then you think about it for a while, and you may even imagine that now I am sitting alone in a room. There's nobody else here. I have a camera, and I suppose that it's not just talking to Nietzsche. It's not just communicating to, with Nietzsche, but it's communicating with an artificial intelligence, with all this, information field which is available on the internet, and everybody may just get there and read it and watch it. And it's so fascinating. I mean, it's like you communicate with not with just an individual. You communicate with the entire with the entire world, with the universe. And and it makes a lot of sense. So when like you want to communicate with like Socrates or Plato or whatever, Nietzsche, you just take a book and you start reading it, and then you start talking about it. For example, you can say that the person is present here, but ideas and emotions, they're conveyed in language. And when you understand language, you basically understand, you have a real communication. It's almost as real as, when you go on YouTube and you want to know something, you basically type a question or query and ask like how to do this or what is that. And there are various videos which explain you, like in which there are some people who explain you this or that, whatever you want to know. And it's like the real communication. So you have a question, you don't need to go like and look for an expert in the real world. You just go on the internet, and there are like all sorts of experts, and you just listen to what they say, and then you talk back. So you record your own video, you upload it on the internet, and see how this process is going. So it's then you get another information, then you have more questions, more ideas, and it's ultimately it's communicating with a machine. So you understand that there's like human beings and there's machines, or internet, artificial intelligence, and you communicate with a machine. So you get some information from it, and you upload certain information there. And this like it's also an interactive process. And it's so fascinating when you think about this type of communication. So you just read a book or you watch a video, then you record your own video, and then it's like all this is on the internet. It's like it preserves. I mean, the internet preserves all these interactions, and you may trace them back. You may go on YouTube and see your history, or on Google and see your history. What did you watch and how it influenced your behavior, your understanding of the world, of yourself, of what you're doing. So fascinating. I mean, no real communication may be compared with this type of communication, since it's like playing chess with Alpha Zero, for example. Yeah, you're you won't be able to beat Alpha Zero, but to play with Alpha Zero, if you really like to play, it's way more advantageous than playing with humans. So when you play with humans, let's suppose that you actually already have beaten all humans. So there's nobody to play with. You are kind of the greatest champion in chess, and for you, it's basically playing with humans and just wasting time. Whereas you may play Alpha Zero, and you may train to play better, understand better, like the game, what's going on in the game. So the same thing, like communicating with the machine. You communicate with the machine, you get smarter, you learn all different, ways of interacting with the machine, and then like communications with humans, it just gets so much easier. So now for me, I guess it's I may just maintain a conversation in a group and conduct a meeting using English and talk to like 20 people without an effort. So I come there, I may be not even prepared for like I usually I prepare myself for conversation, like prepare some topics, but now I started doing this new style of conversations, and it's like I come there completely unprepared, just ask people what they want to talk about, and then we talk for a couple of hours, discussing certain ideas and all. And yeah, I'm gonna develop this style of communication at my speaking club, and I see that when I communicate with a machine, so when I talk to a machine, it's like it's way harder than talking to people. But then it's kind of training. So when you have to talk to people, it actually you don't need to take any effort. It just goes naturally, and you always feel at ease and you don't care. Whereas, yeah, talking to a machine is a little bit harder since you like, yeah, it's like playing a kind of game. And this type of communication. So, like when you read Nietzsche, it's well, to some degree, it's not so hard. For example, if now I would take the Critique of Pure Reason and communicate with Kant and read his book, it's going to be way harder for me to get through each sentence and talk about it for a certain amount of time. Since Kant is like kind of pedant and his language, yeah, it's very complicated. And yeah, it's harder. But if I want to study, let's say, some simple concepts about language and grammar, I might just go on YouTube, find some, contemporary teacher, just listen to his videos, and it's going to be very easy. So I would just, well, I don't want to interrupt this process and go on YouTube now and show how actually I do that. But no, you may do it yourself. So you may take any stupid video and just see how, like, see the difference. And yeah, it's like you always find something which is relevant to your personal experience. Obviously, you wouldn't read Nietzsche if you don't understand like philosophy, if you never read anything before, and if you are not curious about these ideas which are presented in Nietzschean books. Whereas if you want to study language, you may read a lot about grammar and about some techniques and tools and protocols used to develop like to learn foreign language and listen to lots of teachers and do the same type of communication. You may take some articles written by linguists or by English teachers, and you may just go through them slowly, analyzing every sentence, reading it. And yeah, it's like, I guess it's always up to you. And that's why it's so powerful to study something by communicating with a machine instead of going to university or any type of school and listen to teachers, since they present you a certain programs, they present you a certain course, and it's not necessarily that this course is going to be useful exactly for you, since most of these courses are made by teachers, for themselves, or they are made, to make money, and they're made like they're centered on a certain, like, there's kind of, they each of us is different, but they try to find something common and try to make a course which is going to be suitable for like an average an average person. But since nobody is average, like we're all just on this spectrum between fools and sages, whatever, it's very hard to find a certain course which is going to be like exactly suitable for you. But when you do this type of communication with a machine, when you study through reading some materials on the internet or watching certain videos, you will if you like look for the materials on your own, you will always find something that matches your current state of development, your consciousness. You wouldn't read anything that you can't understand, and that's why it's very advantageous. So you just go, you find something that is at this moment that you may understand, that you may work with, and you just go on and learn and enjoy the process. Whereas when in a school or in a university, there are high chances that you will get something that is either difficult for you to understand, or it's so easy and you can understand everything, and it would be way harder to find like to go to get along with the information. But anyway, let me go back and read it once again. It amounts to the very inversion of truth and the denial of the perspective, the fundamental condition of life, to speak of spirit and the good as Plato spoke of them. Yeah, and also he wants to say that this dogmatist philosophy, right? So we're talking about the dogmatic philosophy. So he says this is true, and there's no way to look at it differently. So we all have to believe that the good in itself, like this is the ultimate good, and the pure spirit, like purification of your soul, is the ultimate task. And morality and all other philosophical ideas, justice, freedom, wisdom. And in life, yeah, there's like fundamental condition of life, the perspective. So you have a perspective, you have different views, and it's cool to have many views, even though you may like stick to one of them, but still having many views and being able to kind of mediate your way between these views. It's like what life is. So choices, decisions, you just go from like one path to another. It's never like one and the same. Well, we may say it's sometimes it is. Like if you have just one belief and one goal in your life, and you chase that goal. So you try to, let's suppose you want to, let's take Plato's ideas, what actually he wants to say about pure spirit. So he wants to say that your soul, your spirit, it's immortal, and your body isn't something, it's not like your identity. You identify yourself with body, and you try to care about your body. You try to keep it healthy and strong. But spirit is more important. So your spirit, your body will die at a certain moment, whereas your spirit will live forever. Thinking about this spirit and about this world of afterlife, this is like for Plato the main task. But what, like, at least that's how I understand right now. Maybe my understanding is not sufficient. I'm aware of that. That's why I'm reading this book and studying philosophy for many years. And whenever I find myself thinking about philosophy and different ideas, it's like it's never perfect. It's never like complete understanding. So now I may say that, yeah, I've reached certain understanding. Like I read Plato, for example, or I read Nietzsche, and I may say, now I memorized this bloody book. Let's suppose that I finished reading this book. It took me a couple of years. I memorized the entire book, and I may say to you, like, I know everything about, beyond good and evil. I know everything about Nietzsche. I know everything about philosophy. And this is what it is. And then I, claim something. I say, like, this is my conclusion, or, 5 statements, or, tips and tricks. And yeah, and that's what Nietzsche want to say, that this is kind of dogmatism, stupid. Since next time you look at it, you have different experience, and you probably will be able to see something that you wasn't able to see before. And the same with different ideas. So you think that, pure spirit is a good idea and good in itself, like this, striving for good. and avoiding evil, right? So this is the main purpose in life. But then you may grow up and discover something else, and it may be different once again. So it's all about different, like irrelevance of all absolute absolute statements. But hey, let's just take some vocabulary. So it amounted to the very inversion of truth. Yeah, what, like, it amounted me basically when we say it looks like, yeah, or not like amount. What's the word? I don't know the exact meaning of the word amounted. It's like amount, it's an amount of something, but it amounted like as an adjective, it's quite rare to see. Yeah, amount, but amounted, it must be a verb, amount to something. Amount of to something is a phrasal verb, it figures, sums, etc. amount to a particular total. They equal, oh, it's like it concludes, right? Or therefore, you may use this phrasal verb. They equal the total when they are added together. Oh, it's basically also like it equals. Yeah, it's the same. It amounts to is the same way, is the same saying like it equals to, right? If an infinite, if an attitude, remark, situation, etc. amounts to something, it has the same effect. Not amount to much, anything, a great deal, etc. is not to be important, valuable, or successful. Yeah, I like this, has the same effect. So it's another way of saying that no, the truth was inverted. So it amounted to the very inversion of truth, just just a form. So you may say it is an inversion of truth, or it was an inversion of truth. But to say it amounted to the very inversion of truth is just the peculiar way of expressing an idea. Anyway, so and the denial of the perspective. So the denial of the perspective. So it may be this or it may be that, but Plato says no, it's only this. Like good in itself, yeah, Plato understood what was the good in itself, and he thought that this. No, basically he was talking about language and intelligence and absolute forms. And, but what kind of like ideas? Yeah, justice is good in itself, and wisdom is good in itself. So it's not good for something. And this whole idea of being good for something, but there's a good in itself. It's like intrinsic value. And it's quite a remarkable idea, by the way. But to put it in and to create a basis for one's philosophy and develop this whole, school of thought. And Nietzsche wants to say, no, it's not good. But of course, yeah, we like. Uh, I'm not criticizing Plato or saying that Plato was a bad guy because he invented this ideal spirit, pure spirit, and the good in itself. So it's just it's just a way of looking at the dogmatic philosophies. And there was a guy like Sextus Empiricus, and he was quite famous in ancient times as well. He lived, I guess, uh, at the 2nd century AD, and he also criticized. They had the whole school of skeptics, and they criticized all other philosophical schools like Stoics, Cynics, Epicurean school, academics. they categorized all philosophy in three groups. The first was dogmatic philosophy, and most of the philosophers belonged to dogmatic philosophy category. And the second was academics, and in this sense, it was different from Plato's academy. It was about it's like agnosticism. So they say we don't know what's truth, and we believe that it's impossible to understand what's really true, and like therefore there's no way there's no need to study anything, no need to use language at all, since all knowledge, like the truth, is unattainable. And the last school was skepticism, and Nietzsche here plays a kind of this skeptic, and he uses Plato and his philosophy as a as a as a tool to develop his own strength, his language, his ideas. So basically he attacks Plato on purpose, using another philosophical schools and arguments, and trying to better understand Plato and understand himself as well. And it's quite fun, I mean, to be able to understand to understand someone's philosophy by really deeply analyzing their philosophy and trying to destroy it, trying to attack it, but not attack like say you're a fucking idiot. That's an attack. No, it's like trying to attack in a way which is beneficial for both. So if you are able to attack, if you are able to destroy like Platonism, it's gonna therefore Platonism is not good. So there's something better, like you may develop your own philosophy, and it's more important than if you destroyed Plato's philosophy. And if you are not able to destroy it, you strengthen this philosophy by trying to attack it, so it gets more it gains more strength, since it just it withstands your attack. And it's another very useful form of criticism and thinking. You just take something, you just think about it, and you're thinking. It's not just about understanding, it's more about understanding through refuting. In science, we have all these theories, and when we try to refute the theory, when we try to disprove it, that's how we actually do science. So we try to disprove it. If it's impossible, therefore the theory might be true. So we're not trying to prove it and find more and more evidence. Well, sometimes we do this as well, but you have to do both. You look for evidence which supports your theory, and you also look for evidence which destroys your theory, or which refutes it. Anyway, yeah, today it's somehow I find it today's stream is not as exciting as the yesterday one. So yesterday I was more energetic and enthusiastic about what I was reading. Yeah, probably I discovered some interesting ideas and was talking about them. Now I can't find anything which will make me really excited, and but okay, let's go on. Plato spoke of them as one may. Once again, it amounted to the very inversion of truth and the denial of the perspective, the fundamental condition of life. To speak of spirit and the good as Plato spoke of them, indeed one might ask as a physician, How did such a melody attack that finest product of antiquity, Plato? Had the wicked Socrates really corrupted him? Was Socrates, after all, a corrupter of youths and deserved his hemlock? You know, he makes fun of Socrates as well, Plato's Socrates. So one might ask as a physician, so he considers Plato as a, as a sick individual who, no, sick, probably mentally sick. So basically, he makes fun of Plato, and he does it in a very uh, what a way. So he bullies Plato here, trying to not just make fun of him and say, yeah, like you're, you know, all your philosophy is crap. And you are as well. Like, why did you become such a whatever, such a bad person, Plato? Why did you become such a bad person? What did you want to achieve by, suggesting all these ideas? And yeah, like what was the real reason? So we tend to think about Plato and Aristotle and other philosophers as real educators. So these guys, they like try to learn the nature of reality. They try to study the world themselves, social interactions, whatever, physics, mathematics. And they claimed that this is what's really important in life. So you study, and you teach other people to try to help them. But Nietzsche, he suspects something different here. He thinks, no, all this invention of truth and ideas, it wasn't, no, the main goal wasn't to help humanity and teach everybody and develop some social institutions like academia and later schools. The main goal was to gain power, since when you create some sort of ideology, you basically may get other people believe in this ideology, and you may gain a lot of like lots of benefits from that. So it's not just, it's like conquering the people's minds. So you may conquer the whatever city, nation, state, humanity with a sword. You may go and fight and become the greatest emperor and make all the rest of humanity your slaves. Or you may create an ideology and fight with other ideologies. And then you may enslave all people and believe them in your ideas and make them, slaves on a different level. And it's even worse slavery, since when you, like, in the first case, when you enslave people by fighting them, it's quite clear. So there's no hypocrisy here. So you'll just do it, and everybody sees what's going on. You say, you are a slave, I'm a master, you do what I say. But this type of enslavement, it's very sophisticated. So it's not about, no, I'm a master, I'm Plato, I'm a master, and you are like an average individual, you are a slave. No, it's like, I'm teaching you, I give you something amazing, some ideas. If you learn these ideas, you'll be able to understand everything what's going on in the world. You'll be able to understand yourself. You'll be able to live as a decent and good individual. And this is what is good, and this is what is pure spirit, and this whole ideology. And then eventually you become like a real slave. So you go to Plato school, you learn something, and then you think about Plato as kind of unattainable ideal, and about this, philosophers and whatever. And Nietzsche, yeah, I guess he is rebellious here, quite rebellious. You want to say, no, like, we are studying this Plato and Aristotle and all these dogmatic philosophers and whatever, Kant, Locke, Hume, Descartes, Spinoza. for thousands of years. And when you are supposed to believe everything they say, you are supposed to follow their advice, their commands. And Nietzsche want to say, no, it's not the true. I want to study something else. I want to study like physics. I want to study physiology. I want to study my own body. Yeah, instead of just studying your metaphysical concepts, your fabricated ideas and everything which is completely irrelevant to my life, to my experience. I'm going to study my experience. And this is way more important. And this is why Plato isn't, you know, why he is so dangerous, since you start studying philosophy and ideas and you go in a different world which is not here, which is not real world. And again, what I'm trying to say, it's like mostly interpretation. So I'm trying to interpret Nietzsche in my own way and see how I can understand him. Of course, I'm not like for me, I'm kind of live in both worlds. I mean, metaphysical world is I understand it differently than Plato or Nietzsche understood them. But for me, like this life, which is like going on every day for 16 hours approximately while I'm awake, yeah, for me, I I pay attention to my thoughts more to what's going on in the outer world. And I study my thoughts. I study language. I study all different concepts in philosophy, in linguistics, in other sciences like math and physics. And for me, this intellectual world or whatever is going on inside, I guess it's more important than what's going on around. So I'm not trying to change the environment and social environment, whatever. I'm trying to work on myself, to change my ideas, to clarify my understanding, to use my language appropriately, to describe what I see, to to analyze my experience, my social interactions, my thoughts. And this is a kind of metaphysical world, since we may say that there is a world of dreams, like when you are asleep for 8 hours, there's a world of, which we call real world, which is actually the world which we perceive by our senses. So it's the world of images and the world of sounds and the world of, solid objects. And there's another world which now is quite close to the internet itself. So on the internet, it's not like a real world. You basically interact with information. And also, you may think about it like the world of your thoughts, the world of your ideas, basically your language. And for me now, I live kind of, there's 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours approximately, not eight, maybe a little bit less, maybe it's maybe 5 hours, maybe six. So it's I'm doing certain things in the world, so exercises, walking around, eating, interacting with other human beings, and for like 10, sometimes less, sometimes more. It's an interaction. 10 hours is an interaction with information. So reading, thinking, writing, doing self-analysis, like self-talk, and yeah, I remember times when I was, more focused on this inner world, so I could just be preoccupied with my ideas and not go anywhere, just sit at home for 2, 3, 5 days, just read books and think all the time. And I remember times when I was engaged in, interactions with the real world and this sensual, this what would you say, like what's the word, doesn't matter. So with interacting with the world of my senses, mostly it was my childhood. Yeah, and I guess all these ideas, when you're a child, your brain, your linguistic capacities aren't developed yet, and you enjoy, these different types of interactions. So your body is, quite energetic, and it wants to, interact with objects and, fool around, whatever. Then when you grow older, you get more in your thoughts and your experience. So you don't live, you just think about your life more than you live it. And then at the old age, when you're 70, like Socrates, you basically live only in this thought, in your thoughts and in intellectual world. That's why it's so dangerous for Nietzsche. What he want to say is, like, this afterlife, it may be a very nice concept for those people who die, who are preparing themselves for death, and you may create amazing, like, philosophies, novels, books, whatever, courses of lectures about death, preparing yourself for death and convincing yourself that to die is actually good, instead of continuing living this life. To be dead is not so bad. And you describe it in such a beautiful way that somebody who, like, 10 years old or 15 years old, may actually read it and be influenced by it, and then go and jump off the rails or whatever, some cliff. Yeah, there was in Sextus Empiricus this um, few poetic lines springs to my mind. And Sextus Empiricus repeats it a few times in his book Outlines of Pyrrhonism. It's like it was Cleomachus. I don't remember the exact name of the guy, but there was like few astonishing lines. I'll try to translate them from Russian, since I remember them in Russian, so they may sound quite. Try to catch the idea. Like, form is going to be terrible. The sun, goodbye, said Cleomach, Amprakios. And with these words, jumped from a high mountain into into an abyss. Not because he had strong reasons to die, but because he read Plato's dialogues about the soul. It was so fascinating. I mean, really, you just know Plato, such a beautiful language, such a, like, not now probably it's not beautiful, but if you read it in Greek, 2,000 years old, it's like you read whom Shakespeare at this time. I mean, yeah, it was so powerful. And then you are influenced by these ideas, and you want to say, come on, life is nothing. Like, this guy, how he thinks, this stream of consciousness, this amazing descriptions of the afterlife. I don't want to live. I don't want to waste my my time here on earth. What can I get from earth? Like, what can I get here? So if you're, just think about it. If you're like 30 years old, let's suppose you're 30 years old, you probably already experienced everything what can be experienced here on earth. There's maybe some things which you may experience which you didn't experience before, but most of them is just an extension of your previous experience. So basically your body. So you may think about your body. What can it do? It may consume food. So you probably already has eaten everything. Like, you may eat something else, but it's just, it's different types of food. They will not bring you like some new experience. So the same about relationship with people. So you probably already experienced having a wife and children, and doing some sport, studying at school, working, probably doing some arts, writing something, watching some videos, some movies, reading some books. I mean, all these experiences, they can exhaust themselves in just not even in 13, 20 years. And then you may think about like your future as a continuation of the same like types of experience. Yeah, they give you some positive emotions, but after all, you think about them and they're nothing. I mean, they're really nothing. You might see, okay, like for like my life was so incredible in terms of this consciousness and thoughts, stream of consciousness, and reading like hundreds of different books, and most of these books were original philosophical books written like throughout human history, and they all taught me something new. And I was writing every day, like, and for a decade, just it was like each day was a kind of new experience. And if I take my notes, whenever I read a note in my diary, I always get back to the same moment when I was writing it. So there's always something that I wrote which makes me think about this day. And I, like, most of the time, like 80% of time, 90% of time, I can remember this exact day, what I was feeling, what I was doing, like writing poetry. But still, when you think about the past, it's all like the same thing. You have different emotions. You have joy, pleasure. Sometimes it's bigger pleasure. Sometimes it's just, sometimes you feel sad and discouraged and disappointed. But in general, it's just this play of emotions. And you may say, okay, is there going to be something different in the future? Probably not. Maybe there's great extensions of different feelings. Probably you'll experience some big joy. You'll have sex with a hot girl, like 10, whatever. Or you will just, get like earn $1 billion and go somewhere, like, buy a yacht and your personal jet, and probably you'll even go to the Mars. But in general, you may imagine this, and there's no big difference between you imagining this experience and you having the real experience. And in Plato, like, what he want to say, like, look at your life, it's like it's all unimportant, but afterlife, this is actually the point. So there you'll become like God. So when you die, you actually become God, and you're immortal, and your soul is immortal. But the truth is, there's some some tricks here. So you can't just commit suicide, since then you go to the hell, and you'll suffer. So you have to live a good life for unless you die, and then you'll reach this nirvana state or whatever, paradise. And since, like, all these philosophies has been written by old people, well, not all of them, but like, when you're an old person, you think, oh, soon, like in 5 years, I'm going to die. So let's just make up a new philosophy and convince myself that this life is terrible, and it's suffering, continuous suffering, and the afterlife is going to be great. And you basically believe that, believe in your own philosophy, since it's very easy. I mean, it's like all our minds and our bodies, they're so strange and crazy. So you may believe in all sorts of nonsense. You may convince yourself that you're a fly, literally. You may, if you do that on a kind of serious way. So let's suppose that there's gun to your head, and you have to convince yourself that you're a fly. You'll be able to do that. Maybe not for 1 minute, but if you take like 3, 4, 5 months or years, you may, like, people are like, go and check to some places where there are some crazy people. So literally, you may convince yourself whatever you like to convince yourself. You may believe in all sorts of things, and and mostly it's like language. It's the uh, faculty of our minds, like language, that if it's presented in a beautiful and logical way, you may take it as the absolute truth. Especially if its language is more sophisticated and more clear and precise than yours. So that's why all these problems with language. So when you learn language to the level when you not just understand it, but your language is better than all other languages used by other people, it's almost impossible to convince you in anything. It's all about, like, having a better language. So whatever you may say to me, it's like most of it, if you want to convince me, I mean, if you have some ideology and you want to say, like, you must do this because of that, because of we have science, and science proves that this is true, and therefore you must do this. Like, I'll tell you, like, come on, read Sextus Empiricus, and then we'll have a conversation. And then you say, okay, And well, if you really read Sextus Empiricus, then we won't have a conversation, since you will say, okay, now I understand what's going on. So it's like, it's very threatening. I mean, really, I had some conversations with dogmatists, like serious conversations. I mean, not so serious, but, you know, quite long conversations. And most of the time, especially after I read Sextus Empiricus and was thinking about it for a couple of years, like what skepticism is. Yeah, most of the time when people try to convince me in something, they believed deeply. So they ended up, you know, very disappointed in their own beliefs. But anyway, so Plato, yeah, physician. So Nietzsche want to say, like, look here, Plato was corrupted by Socrates. Yeah, how did such a melody? Melody is something bad. I don't remember the exact meaning, but I remember it's kind of disease, but it's not a disease. It's, yeah, let's just look at it and see what it means literally. Literally, melody, a serious problem in society, an illness. Yeah, it's like a disease, but old use. A serious problem in society. How it sounds? Melody. Melody. All right. Melody attack that funniest product of antiquity, Plato. Had the wicked Socrates wicked? Had the wicked Socrates wicked? It must be wicked, but I'm not sure. Wicked. Yeah, wicked. Had the wicked Socrates really corrupted him? Was Socrates, after all, a corrupter of youth and deserved his hemlock? And such an amazing like play on words. Like in Nietzsche, yeah, and you always see it in his books that he uses his language so brilliantly. I mean, he definitely doesn't want to offend anybody. He just, wow. Yeah, what he wants to say. He wants to say that Plato was corrupted by the wicked Socrates. And here is like kind of irony, or, you know, he doesn't really, if you, for example, believe in Socrates and you believe that Socrates is the wisest guy on earth, and then you read that wicked Socrates, a corrupter of youth, and you might start, you know, complaining, saying that, oh, Nietzsche, he's a troll, he just, you know, wants everybody believe that Socrates was the wicked guy and whatever. But no, it's just he plays with words, and what he doesn't want to say anything bad about Socrates or Plato. He just try to find a different way of looking at this issue, this philosophical, you know, problem, these philosophical ideas, since everybody praised Plato and Socrates for thousands of years. And in philosophy, in academic philosophy, and in all philosophical circles, if you try to look at it from a different point of view, so if you try to tell people that Socrates, for example, was a bad person and he was justly condemned to death by his society and he did something terrible, you'll be immediately, you know, taken as a mad person. Whereas in this time, Socrates was really like for society, he was a bad person. And Nietzsche tries just to invert stuff. So he tries to say, okay, let's like take a common philosophical perspective and look at it from a different point. What if Socrates was like wasn't the wisest man, but was the stupidest man, and he was actually a fool, like when he was saying about, you know, I know that I don't know anything. Yeah, what if this was like the real case? He was a real fool who didn't know anything, and all this philosophy just nonsense. It makes no sense. I would say, wow, no, it's like we have 2000s of years of history of philosophy, and they influence so many philosophers. And Nietzsche want to say, yeah, and what? Like all your philosophers were idealists and they didn't understand what was going on. And it was actually like all this history of philosophy was nonsense. What if that is the case? And then, yeah, it's like a different perspective. So he wants to challenge your ideas. And you may immediately become defensive, but why do you become defensive? So why do you want to argue against it? Why do you want to say, no, it wasn't truth? Like, I believe that Socrates was a good guy, and I believe that Plato was a good guy, but why do you really believe that? Have you actually tried to analyze on your own? Have you like tried to see it from a different perspective? Have you tried to think about it and see maybe it wasn't the case? And have you tried to find not just benefits, which we as society had after this philosophy, but also like some bad things which caused harm and all sorts of troubles. Yeah, if you look at that, you will find a lot of bad things which philosophy brought to humanity. And it's very hard to tell what kind of things unless you think about them on your own. That's what Nietzsche want to say. Like, this is an ideal. So Plato, Socrates, they're ideals. But why are they ideals? Like, is it really true? Is there any way to look at it from a different side and say there wasn't like good guys, there were bad guys, and good guys were those who actually killed them? So no, it's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It's impossible. So it's the same case as we take Christ, for example, and say, what if Christ was evil? Like, just a perspective. So what if that was the case? You say, wow, what? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, again, it's like I'm not trying to say or make you believe in something. Just what if this is the case? So if you're a religious person, your beliefs and ideas and your brain and your experience may be all structured around this idea that this was the guy like Christ, and he was God, and you try to be like him, or you try to be him literally. And this is the purpose, maybe a purpose of your life. You want to live in the same way, so you want to be kind and good, and you want to spread love and whatever. But what if, like, you try to challenge this idea seriously? So what if it's not true? What if it was exactly the opposite? So you may, take some crusades or inquisition or all sorts of religious wars, and you may say, what if just, all of this was because this guy like wasn't good guy, he was bad guy, but he was presented as a good guy, and the whole religion was developed on that. Yeah, and again, I'm not going to say that this or that is true. It's just Nietzsche want to present you with a different perspectives and say that there's, like, when you start looking at the reality, and by reality it's not at the sun and earth and trees and cars and people who are going around here, but on the reality of history and historical perspective. If you adopt a different view, which is like quite different from, like, in this time, Nietzsche tries to, like, in reverse all like order of things in psychological and philosophical domains, and say, what if this is true? And then what if I think about this as if it were true for a year, let's say, and I will develop the entire ideology which is opposite to the common ideology. What if this is true? And then, of course, you got such books like Beyond Good and Evil, or Antichrist, or The Twilight of Idols. So basically, you may find good everywhere. You may find, like, you may take any belief and based on it, the entire philosophy, write the whole book and say that all previous books were nonsense. And reality will show you a lot of evidence for that. And you, like, that's so like fascinating. Let's go on. Socrates. Hemlock. Deserved Socrates his hemlock. You may write down in a comment. I guess I'll still be alive when you do that to respond. Yeah, but being honest, I think like these videos, yeah, they have to. If I'm able to succeed and get through the entire book, which is going to take me at least few hundred hours, but probably quite more, since I'm talking for 8 hours, even more than 8 hours, and I got through 4 pages. So it's like 10 times more, 80 hours. Yeah, 800 hours. So like approximately, if I go with the same speed through the entire book, it'll take me 800 hours to get through the entire book. And well, I hope I'll be able to accomplish it in a couple of years, maybe in a year, like doing it like at least 2 times a week, like like hard work at gym. It's for me, it's the same. What I'm doing here, it's people go to gym and they lift weights, and what I'm doing here, I'm just lift intellectual weights, like beyond good and evil, for a couple of hours, looking at myself, what am I talking here about, and trying to make sense of the book and my experience, and trying to match them both and understand better what's going on. Yeah, now again, I see it. Whatever I say here, I already was thinking about it before. So it's quite rare that I come up with something new. But even though I was thinking about it before, it's still now what I describe, how I describe it, it's like the way of describing is different, and I may understand it better just because I describe it from a different way. So whatever I was talking about for the last half an hour, trying to say that Plato, like Socrates, they were bad guys. Yeah, I thought about it, but I never tried to like really create some kind of ideology or create a kind of theory trying to prove that Socrates was a bad guy and his ideas was, the most tiresome and the most dangerous of errors hitherto being made. Yeah, I know it's like Nietzsche way of looking at the world, but Nietzsche, yeah, he wasn't serious. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. He knew for him it was kind of exercise. He didn't try to say that Plato was a bad guy or Socrates was a bad guy. He understood that they, like, as he says before, like, let us not be ungrateful to it. Like, he understood the value and all this. But he tried, what if you look at it? Like, it may help you to understand that all sorts of beliefs and convictions that you have may be just based on nothing, on somebody else's words and ideas which have no ground. But anyway, but the struggle against Plato, or to speak plainer and for the people, the struggle against the ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity, for Christianity is Platonism for the people, produced in Europe a magnificent tension of soul, such as had not existed anywhere previously. With such a tensely strained bow, one can now aim at the furthest goals. All right. I guess, yeah, I'm going to finish today's stream with this sentence. And tomorrow, I hope I'll be able to finish the preface tomorrow, or no, day after tomorrow, or whenever I'm going to make the next stream. Yeah. All right, let's go slowly through this. But the struggle against Plato, or to speak plainer and for the people, the struggle against the ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity. For Christianity is a Platonism for the people, produced in Europe a magnificent tension of soul, such as had not existed anywhere previously. Okay, so a magnificent tension of soul. So whenever you have like someone, not someone, but I guess it's more, well, I can't, I can't make my mind clear. Yeah, let's start from here. So Christianity is Platonism for the people. So why he compares Platonism and Christianity, and why he says that uh, Christianity is Platonism for the people? There's quite similar story Yeah, and I was thinking about this story, I guess, from the first time when I read this book. It was 2014. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I even tried to talk about it with some people. With my girlfriend at 2014, I tried to tell her like my ideas on, on this. That was so funny. Anyway, so Christianity, the same story, and now I'd like to bring this story up and try to see how well I understand it. So, in the case of Socrates, what was going on? He was the one of the smartest guys in his time in his time, and he tried to educate the masses. He tried, well, maybe it's like one of the reasons. Maybe he didn't try to educate the masses, he didn't care. But let's suppose that he basically his activity, he was developing his, intelligence, his consciousness, his mind, and he influenced lots of people in his time, and they admired his wisdom, his knowledge. So, and then eventually he was condemned to death because of denying the their gods, like the gods of the society that existed back then. And he took his hemlock, so he took like he could run away. His friends, he was put in prison after the verdict, and his friends arranged the escape. So they basically uh, bought the guard, and they said like they came to Socrates and said like, Socrates, you may leave, like let's like you just need to leave this like city Athens, and you like there will help you, like you don't need to die. And he said, no, I'm gonna die. I'm not like, if this is the right thing, like if my society condemned me to death, I'm gonna die. I'm not afraid. Like, and this is why. And there's the whole dialogue in Plato. I guess it's Crito, one of the first dialogues, and there's another dialogue by another pupil of Socrates, Xenophont, or like in Russian it's Xenophont. I don't know the name in English, but I guess it's Xenophont or Xenophont or whatever. Like another pupil of Socrates, and there's another dialogue. And in this dialogue, basically, what's going on, friends of Socrates come to him and say, you may escape, you don't need to die. And he says, no, I'm going to die. I'm not afraid. Like, if it's the case, I'll accept it, and I'll die, since, to die is actually good. Like, life is a disease, and now I am cured. And these were the last words of Socrates. He basically said, like, I owe uh, chicken to Asclepius. Like, Asclepius was a god of medicine, whatever. So, and he's like, they interpreted it as if it were, he got over. So, got over the disease, and life was a disease, and death is, is the cure. So, and that's the end of the story. Then Plato wrote his dialogues, and Xenophontus wrote his dialogues, few. And Socrates was redeemed by, he was redeemed by society, and uh, he was taken as the greatest philosopher and the wisest guy. So it made like people, it reversed their minds. So he was condemned to death. They killed him. He was the best guy at that time, and they killed him because some idiots said that he was corrupting the youth. And after that, there was a whole cult, like this philosophy of Plato basically produced such a strong movement among aristocracy. So all people who were literate, who could who had a little bit of intelligence, and at that time there were not so many people like that, but all this intellectual elite of Athens, and not just in Athens, it wasn't like it spread to the Rome and other empires, whatever, what was there, not empires, cities, states, cultures. Yeah, they approved Socrates and was saying like, yeah, this was the wisest man. And then they read his, dialogues written by Plato, which weren't actually Socrates, so like his real dialogues, but Plato made up most of them. But the idea here is that after Plato's writings, Socrates became very popular, and people started studying philosophy and developing their own schools and taking seriously everything that was going on there, talking about the spirit, talking about Platonic forms and ideas, talking about afterlife, jumping off the mountains to become gods. So this is the story, and it's for aristocracy. And the same story with Christ. So basically, the idea is that there was a good guy who did some miracles, and he was a prophet. So there was another religion, like, and Socrates again, it's like one culture. It's ancient Greece, and Socrates basically is kind of intellectual in this ancient Greece, and masses believe in something else. They believe in Zeus. They believe in Hesiodes, gods like whatever, Zeus, Aphrodite. I don't know English names, by the way, but some of them, yeah, Hermes. I know like dozens of Russian names, but I'm afraid I wouldn't say them correctly in English. But anyway, who cares? Yeah, Hephaestus, Artemides, Proserpine. Yeah, Garden of Proserpine. Recently, I read this poem by Algernon Swinburne. Okay, there were many gods, and Socrates was saying he didn't say there was one God, but he said there's soul, and all these philosophical discourses more important than these talks of gods and all this stuff. And he was condemned to death. He died, and Plato basically resurrected him in his writings. The same with Christ. He was talking about the real God, and there was in the religion in Judea, like now it's Judeo-Christian, but then it was just this who were there. What was the religion? So many, like, it's hard to talk about religion in English since it's all my Russian translation. So I may talk about it in Russian, but in English I'm not so skillful at these terms, and I don't want to translate them. Okay, so the idea with Christ, he was so the best guy basically at that time, at this culture. He was the best guy. He didn't do anything but said that he was like the smartest guy, like not smartest, but the wisest guy. Okay, he was the wisest guy, and he was like he was calling himself God and saying that everybody else is God, and yeah, we are all just sons of God. And he made some miracles, and he was condemned to death, and he died as a result, and he suffered before dying, and he became, after that there was apostles like Paul and other whoever was writing evangelia, I don't know the right way of saying that. So, and then they resurrected him in their writings, and another idea of immortal soul and good in itself, and being good person, being honest, it's not about honesty, it's more about being kind and compassion and love. So this is like very like there are some, not just some similarities, but there are many similarities. And in case of Socrates, of course, there were not so many people who were able to read Plato's dialogues. They were very complicated and philosophical. So it was for aristocracy. That's why Nietzsche says like Platonism for the people, since in Christ it was, in Socrates there were no miracles. It was just a real story. And with Christ, they like made the religion, like whatever people, Paul and other apostles, they basically took a story and developed it so that common people may read it and understand it. So they didn't, they had no need to understand everything. Just, they had to understand what happened. There was a good guy, he was killed, and what? And then he resurrected and got to heaven because he was good. And everybody must be as good as he. And you shouldn't be afraid of death, since death is nothing. If you're a good guy, you die and you go to the paradise. And that's the moral of the story. Do the right thing. Be good, and everything is going to be okay. Don't worry about life. Don't worry about all these earthly possessions. It's unimportant. You have an immortal soul. That's the message, basically. And the message is the same in almost the same in Christianity and Platonism. But Platonism, it's for sophisticated, educated, intellectual elite, and the Christianity, it's for people who barely can read. So that's the Nietzschean idea here. But the struggle against Plato, or to speak plainer, and for the people, the struggle against the ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity. So what is the ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity? The same idea, ecclesiastical oppression, that this life doesn't deserve a damn. And the afterlife, that's where you should aim at. In this life, be a good person, then you'll become a, God afterlife, or you go to paradise and your soul is gonna, enjoy all these advantages of immortality. Yeah, and it's what's the problem? Well, it's unscientific. Instead of studying science and studying what's really going on in the world, like studying social sciences, studying, like math, chemistry, physics, whatever, people spend their time like perfecting their souls and being good. And you may say, yeah, why not? It's a kind of an interesting idea. So why not? It's good to be good. But then we see the whole evidence of history. So you read history, you think, people probably were very good, like Christians were good, but in reality, they fight each other all the time. They lied all the time to each other. They all this. What was going on? It was that's why it's called Dark Ages. So you ask, what the hell is Dark Ages? Dark Ages, yeah, it was the time, roughly speaking, between 5th century, 5 AD to like Enlightenment or Renaissance. And this dark age, there was nothing written, nothing, like no science, no progress. Oh, it was in Arab culture. They preserved like some math and knowledge, and Aristotle, by the way, and Plato. But in Europe, it was kind of wars after wars after wars, all the time, and religion as well. So it's like, that's why it's called like ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity. And ecclesiastical, once again, this ecclesiastical religion or ecclesiastical message is that vanitas vanitatem omnia vanitas. So the whole idea is like nihil novum sub sole. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. So all life is terrible. Everything that's going on here, it like makes little sense. It's better to be dead than to be alive. But of course, written in a sophisticated way, so in an inspiring way. Helps you to die, helps you. That's why it's philosophy. So basically, you approach serious philosophy, ecclesiastical philosophy at the end of your life. You shouldn't read it when you're 20 years old. You may read it, but you have to be aware. Nietzsche wants to make you aware of what's really going on. It doesn't mean that, if you it's dangerous for you to read ecclesiastical, philosophy, or, to study Platonism in depth, and condemn life and go for the afterlife. No, it's more about being aware that there are different perspectives, and this perspective, it basically says that what's going on here. This is what people call truth is relevant. So if now you believe in truth, you believe that truth is this or that ideology, you may end up in a in a real hell. Not afterlife, but now, in this life, in real life. Anyway, the struggle, against, and there, of course, there were countless people, who understood that. So there were philosophers, there were scientists, there were smart people who could understand what was going on, but most of them couldn't read, most of them couldn't write, and it was like this struggle, of course, and this injustice. It's like justice is an ideal, but in reality, there are people who say this is justice and everything else not, like law, right? So you have all these laws, and those people who are represent law, they are corrupted, like the first, and then, like people who are unjust, they tell you what is justice, and people who are fools, they teach you what is wisdom. And that's what's like, that's what corruption means. You go to school, there are people who actually hate learning, who hate studying, who hate knowledge, who hate intelligence, who are obsessed with their lives, and who want money, who want power, who want some things, who want a lot of money. It's not enough for them to have this experience, teach other kids and study with them and study yourself. They want the money, they want to travel the world, they want to teach. And they teach you, by the way, and tell you what is good, what is bad, tell you what you need to learn. As philosophers, modern philosophers in academia, who want to earn lots of money and tell you that this is the right way of doing philosophy. Pay me like 2,000, 200, pay me 20,000 bucks per, year, or per, whatever, per all this semester, and no semester, okay, like 5 years, whatever. And I'll teach you like philosophy. And I actually don't care about philosophy. I memorized, 50 philosophers, memorized the dates when they were teaching philosophy, memorized their basic ideas. Like, I memorized basically 50 pages, and that is my job. I'm just walking around and telling people like 50 pages over and over again. I don't study anything. I don't care about philosophy. I don't care about my intelligence. I'm trying to improve, but it's like the second issue. The first thing that I'm going to do is like make money. I want more money. Yeah. All right. So let's go on. Yeah. The ecclesiastical oppression of millennials. Now, I already mentioned that, but I guess I may repeat it. It's not a big problem. So I was reading Ecclesiastes and memorized, like, I wrote the book of Ecclesiastes 2014. It helped me to get over the breakup, and I even memorized the first chapter, 18 sentences in Latin, like not in Russian, but in Latin. And I was repeating them from time to time. It was very funny. I mean, it was terrible, but like the bottom line here is to convince you that life is terrible. And Ecclesiastes, he complains all the time about, I'm wise, but I'll die, and it doesn't matter. And the fucking idiot is going to live after me and take, my words, but he will not be able to understand anything. And whatever is going on here is just temporary and it's meaningless. And let's go to the hell. That's basically the meaning. Yeah, and as I said, it's you may just listen to me now and you may think, oh, that's terrible. Why people don't talk about it? Why I haven't thought about it on my own? Why I always believed that this or that is true, and now I see that it's not, or whatever. It's and you may run and tell other people, like, guys, you have to study science and you have to understand what's going on, and this is true. And again, this is a trap, so you can't fall into this trap. So if you may say, oh, this is not true, and therefore the opposite must be true, and you go and try to develop another ideology train that something else is true. The true is not in the middle. It's like you have to understand both, and you have to understand that both of them are there's no truth, which is with capital T. It's all just relative, depending on the situation, where you are, what are you doing, why are you doing that, etc. And it also may be some kind of truth. See, I say, oh, there's no truth, but there's no truth. It's also truth, right? You may say, oh, this is the ultimate truth, that there's no truth. No, it's also not. Sometimes there is truth, which is like, which is what? Which no, it's very hard to to talk about it. Go and read if you're really interested to understand what I'm saying. Go and read not just Beyond Good and Evil, but Outlines of Pyrrhonism by Sextus Empiricus. All right, so once again, but the struggle against Plato, or to speak plainer and for the people, the struggle against the ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums, of Christianity, for Christianity is Platonism for the people, produced in Europe magnificent tension of soul, such as had not existed anywhere previously. So it's kind of psychological warfare between ideologies. Yeah, we had lots of struggles, lots of wars in the history of humankind, and development of all these nations and different cultures, whatever, French, Italian, English, Russian, Chinese, Japanese. So they basically unite, and they all try to find some. Now we're in the age of globalization. I guess in the next few hundred years, it's going to be the case that we all are going to be united under one, the biggest ideology. And it's almost the case right now. So we're united under liberalism and democratism, which is another ideology. And now we still have national states, we still have national languages, but there probably is going to extinct in a few hundred years. Not all of them, but most of them. Maybe all of them. Maybe we'll have just one language. That's uh, will be the end problem of our species, since there's just one language, and there's no way this. The dogma is gonna if there's just one language, if you are like reach the level when you know this language better than anybody else, and all this, maybe not just you as a person, maybe artificial intelligence or a community of people. So you basically control everything that's going on, and you just what okay, I'm saying some nonsense, doesn't matter. Psychological wars, yeah. So different ideologies, like Nietzsche, I guess he later will profess that in 20th century, like religious war will outshine all sorts of wars which we had before, and all this not religious, he basically meant ideological wars, like for example, socialism versus fascism, or no, I guess it was the biggest conflict in 20th century, but it's not the last one. I guess like this is a kind of wishful thinking to dream that with the invention of atomic weapons, we will not have wars in the future. So probably we'll reach this state when another war, like world war, is going to start. And yeah, probably we'll lose 80-90% of our technologies and advancements and get back to the Middle Ages. But we get back to the Ages under those people who win. Yeah, the problem is it's very hard to predict uh, the outcomes of the war. So usually people don't start wars when they think that it's impossible to win them. So they most of the time they believe that they're already have advantages and they will win the war. But with atomic weapons, it's very hard to predict. Like if you start a war, probably may destroy all civilization. That's why it's not so smart to start a war. But if you don't care about civilization, if like let's suppose this ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity. So it's basically two opposite ideologies, which one of which says that life is terrible and miserable and we have to get rid of it, and another says no, life is good and we have to develop it and we have to find ways to organize in like, some societies and works for some common purpose. And yeah, now it seems that this ecclesiastical oppression of millenniums of Christianity, it's no longer here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to speak about it right now. So I'll be like immediately fired, not fired, but burned in a fire for heresy or whatever. But now, yeah, it's you might talk about whatever you like to talk, and it's like more pro-life. So modern science and modern discourse and philosophy and ideologies, like those who are pro-science and pro-life, they're stronger than those who are against it. But it's not going to be like forever. It's like this like battle between good and evil, which Nietzsche actually tries to study here in his book and understand and give some account of it. So it's the battle those who don't want to live, who don't want to live, who want to like destroy everything, like all sorts of whatever achievements which we had as humanity. Like for some people, yeah, they there's and they have their reasons, of course. So there are many people like that who want to just since the problem is these people are weak. They can't do anything. Since if you are strong, you basically don't have this motivation of destroying everything. You enjoy life. But if you're weak and stupid and you have to the those thunderstorm and I want to say like the reality confirms me, whatever I want to say. So if you're weak and stupid and miserable and depressed all the time, you probably will look at life as something that shouldn't be there. And if you're, hyper conscious of all these miseries, I mean, injustice and wars and all sorts of terrible things like crimes and murders and blood and exploitation and animals suffering, whatever, you may also like have this perspective like Buddhists have, so that life is it's better not to be alive, it's better to be dead. Ultimately, they don't say it's better to be dead, they say nothingness is the ultimate state, and what you perceive it's also nothingness since you have no access to the real world. But anyway, yeah, death, life. So when these people actually gain power, like let's suppose they are weak but they may unite in one big group, and since like 90% of people are like that, I mean, not 90, maybe 80, but I don't know, actually, just numbers just pops up to my mind. Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I didn't have statistical evidence, but lots of people are weak and miserable, and you may say that by listening to what they're saying. Most of the time, people just complain about everything all the time. Like our average people, listen to them for 5 minutes, and you may understand what's going on in their life. And it's like, no, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying, oh, this is bad people. The point is that for them, this ecclesiastical philosophy may be very appealing. So if I'm a weak person and there's all sorts of troubles in my life and injustice, and I'm always oppressed, and I have to work, I have to do the job which I hate, and there are people around me whom I hate, and I'm like experiencing all these negative emotions all the time. Then I read the Ecclesiast, or the book of Ecclesiastes, or Plato, or whatever, and it says something that I really enjoy. It says like the world is terrible, everything is like in a bad state, and be a good person. Be a good person, by the way, and you'll like next life you'll achieve some different whatever results, and it's not a big deal. So instead of just doing something like that, they kind of give you morphe. No, what's the word? Like they give you drugs to make you sleep. That's why Nietzsche says our duty is wakefulness itself. So being asleep means like to read this ideologies, to be mesmerized or hypnotized by these ideologies, and just maintain your animal life for the rest of your life until you're dead, and then the circle starts over and goes on and on. Yeah, Nietzsche says no, it's like wakefulness. You have to be awake, and this is all about developing your intelligence and understanding and science. Yeah, reason, logic, but not only, also like all sorts of qualities and virtues, which like not Aristotelian virtues, but all sorts of emotions which you need to see what's really going on and interpret it from different angles, not just looking at it from one case. But anyway, yeah, it's like I was talking about, we reach this state when there's some new ideology, not just Ecclesiast, nobody reads him, but some super wise and clever artificial intelligence. He basically writes an ideology which is, all people may unite around. Like not all people, but those people who suffer and for whom life is terrible. And then they make, blow everything up. Saying, come on, it's dishonest. So why should this 10% or 1% of people enjoy life and 99 suffer? Let's make everybody suffer. And, yeah, and this what this new ideology is going to be about. But uh, fortunately, we have many different languages, many different perspectives, and yeah, probably it's not gonna. But even if it will be destroyed, who cares? Okay, we'll create a new one. Like there's, uh, like our sun is gonna shine for next 4 billion years. Yeah, and life on Earth is going to be possible, I guess, for the next billion years. So if we destroy everything and start from zero, we'll get the same point again. We'll develop the internet, this collective consciousness, whatever. It's all going to happen again. We'll take the lesson, or we'll not take the lesson. But again, it's like, who cares? Nobody cares. All these threats about, people believe that they may lose some, but you can't lose anything. Oh, but it's not like I'm not I'm not gonna dive into this since I want to finish. I have just a few more sentences. to consider, and then I'm going to finish since I'm already exhausted, and I don't like particularly today's my mood. It's kind of reflective, and I don't feel some great emotions which I had yesterday. Yeah. But anyway, let's go on. Such as had not existed anywhere previously. With such a tensely strained bow, one can now aim at the furthest goals. So magnificent tension of soul. Different ideologies, they fight with each other and they get stronger and stronger. And eventually they're so strong that it's so mind-boggling. I mean, you just take, you know, it takes maybe or in my experience, I would say it takes just 10 books. So you take 10 books, like 500 pages. Basically, it's like 5,000 pages. You read them at once. You take some great philosopher, like who is on one side. So if you want to read, if you want to sense what ecclesiastical operation of millenniums of Christianity is, you read Schopenhauer. He's the cleverest guy, and he'll convince you that, it's better to be dead than alive, and life is just suffering, and there's no way to get out of this suffering. And so you may read this, okay, not 10, you read 5 of his books at once. And by at once, I mean you have to get rid of all your stupid, whatever you're doing in life, work, family, job, work, job, okay, job, family, friends, parties, all sorts of distractions. You get rid of all of this. It probably will take a couple of months, maybe half a year, depending on how serious you are. Maybe a year, yeah, maybe like a decade. But the point is to get to get to the point where you may sit down for half a year and read books and forget about yourself and try to understand what's going on really in human history, in life, what's really happening here. Don't watch fucking news. Don't read newspapers. Don't listen to what your famous intellectuals on the internet, like modern guys, tell you. It's most of it is just nonsense. It's just different pictures, different words, which doesn't provide you with any understanding. See, you may listen to me, like what I'm saying now, and you may compare, like if you study philosophy or if you read some books, you may compare what's going on like in your consciousness. So what's going on now in my consciousness, it's what's going on here all the time. Like I'm just showing you how I think. So whenever I'm alone, like these 16 hours, I'm like thinking like that most of the time. Not like that per se. Sometimes, of course, I just watch some lectures and don't think at all. I'm just trying to analyze ideas of others. And sometimes I'm trying to have some exercises where I try to forget about thinking at all and just be present and perceive and feel, different sensations. But mostly that's what's going on. And it's like to get to this level, you can't get just by reading stupid articles, by analyzing modern society, social discourse, whatever. You have to go and read like many books written by some great philosophers like Schopenhauer, who is on one side. And then you take Nietzsche, for example. This, like for me, I would recommend to take like Hegel and Schopenhauer as one. Like this was actually my case. So I read Hegel. I was inspired and influenced by Hegel, and I was thinking about what I was reading for half a year, and it had the strongest impact on my consciousness and my understanding. It's 10 volumes of Hegel, but I wasn't serious while I was reading Hegel. So I was working. I had my office, and every day I was like, I communicated with a lot of people. I didn't try to really deeply analyze what I was reading, and yeah, I was kind of young. I mean, I was 25 at that time. And then I read Schopenhauer. And this gift, like 5 books of Hegel and then 5 books of Schopenhauer, may open your eyes and like show you what's really going on. And then you read Nietzsche, for example, and then you understand like even better since Nietzsche gives you perspectives which are present in Schopenhauer or Hegel. But to, like, once again, to understand, you should shut off your social life, your interactions with people for a certain amount, for a certain period of time at least, since it's very destructive. You can't just talk about it all the time with people. You can't focus on real like learning unless you dedicate all your time to it. You can't like have parties once a week with your friends and drink vodka or wine and simultaneously study philosophy. Studying philosophy is like you uh, dedicate undivided attention to it for a certain period of time, half a year, maybe more. Then you understand what's going on. Then you may get back to your normal life, which is, which is maybe not the case, since probably you wouldn't like, if you are able to read Schopenhauer for 5 volumes, I guess you can't, you wouldn't be able to return to normal life. You may pretend that you're just, an average person. You may have conversations. You may develop your speaking club, and it's going to be nice. But it's not going to be real anymore. So what's real? Like after you read like 10 books consistently, philosophical books, original books, not some summaries or some stupid histories of philosophy. When you read original works by philosophers seriously and study them, like in the same way as I study like this book, for example, not so deeply. I mean, you don't need to go through each sentence and record yourself on Zoom. You just need to read like book after book, trying to pay as much attention as possible and do it as fast as possible. So if you read like 10 pages a day, it's not going to work. If you read 20 pages a day, it's not going to work. You have to read like at least 50 pages a day, or better, 100 pages a day, and read like these 10 books in the shortest period of time possible. Then you understand what's going on. Then you may do philosophy yourself. So not just read these books, but write down everything what's going on in your life. Basically, record your experience as honestly and precisely as possible. So you don't need to write about the books. You don't need to analyze them and say, okay, there was reading Nietzsche, and this is what he said, and this is what I think, and blah blah blah. No, write about your personal experience. Like, this is what I did. I like was walking there, thinking about this, felt this, whatever. Just few few sentences. So I was reading this book. It was kind of funny. I discovered like 2 ways of looking at the life. Like, one is kind of pessimistic and other is optimistic. I've read about ecclesiastical oppressions of millennials, of Christianity. Yeah, it made me feel sad, or it made me feel whatever. What is the opposite of sad? Excited? Not excited. It's damn excited word. I have to get rid of it. I repeat it so many times. Joyful. Okay, it made me feel joyful. And yeah, just write one page. And your experience. What's important, like your experience, not the ideas from the book. Your experience, how it shifts from your present state to whatever you may go. And then, like after a few months, you'll see that your experience, you'll see different things. You will not see like trees or cars or people or whatever, sky, the sun. Yeah, of course you will see them, but you will not pay attention to something irrelevant, flowers, whatever, dogs, animals. You will see here what's going on in your mind. You will see your thoughts, which you haven't observed before. And then these thoughts will, the more you pay attention to them, the more interesting they are going to become. And some brilliant thoughts will appear suddenly, which you haven't dreamed of having. You'll just say, wow, this is me. Like, this is what I'm thinking. This is how and then if you write it daily, I mean, a couple of years, and you may write like a Plato or like Nietzsche, well, not a couple of years, maybe 10 years. So if English is your native language, you start writing your daily experience and simultaneously read philosophy, in 10 years, if you are able to organize your life in that way that you may dedicate maybe not all your life, but 5 hours a day, like studying philosophy and writing, in 10 years, man, there's you're going to be one of the greatest writers, basically. Uh, all right, talking too much. Magnificent tension of soul. Yeah, such as had not existed anywhere previously. With such a tensely strained bow, one can now aim at the furthest goals. All right, Platonism and this oppression created a tension, psychological tension. Now, when we can understand what was going on and see it from a different point, we also may, develop some new ideas, new ideologies. But what kind of ideologies? Like, should it be the same ideology like Plato's ideology, or should it be the opposite ideology? Or should it be skepticism when you understand that all truth is relevant? Or should it be something else? Who knows? But we have lots of power, linguistic power, and we may use it. I mean, we may really develop such a sophisticated language. It's just impossible to describe what kind of language. So imagine, let's suppose now you're I guess nobody who studies English actually will be able to listen to my videos, but those who are native speakers, there are more chances. So suppose that you study, not doesn't matter. Suppose you study a different like foreign language, French, German, Chinese, whatever. So you may see that when you study it, like when you get to the point where you can understand this language, it's like just the beginning. And then you like try to learn to speak, and it's so hard to speak, so hard to use grammar. Whatever you say, people don't care. Nobody just, listen to you seriously. You can like express an idea in a right way. Whatever you think, is very hard to convey your thoughts in language. But when you like understand this tension, and when you like study philosophy and develop your language and work on your language, at some moment it just gets to the level where you not just describe everything what's going on. You may just take the stupidest experience, you may take the dullest, the dimmest experience which you ever had, just walking from one place to another, or just sitting in a room and waiting for you know in a queue waiting for a physician, or for a doctor. And it's like dull experience, but you may take your thoughts, you may take your language, and you may make something out of this experience, and it's going to be so powerful and so great and so brilliant and so beautiful. You say, wow, like this is the case. And you may take any ideology, you may take anything. Just if you have a purpose and you arrange your language around this purpose, you may build some amazing, metaphysical, beautiful, whatever fears. Just language, just build some movies and books, whatever. Yeah, this is very funny. Like this, you may even not build it. I mean, you may just experience. Like you may have different experience. See what I'm trying to say is that when you develop your language to a certain point, you don't care about what's going on in reality. You don't care about what's going on in your life. You don't care about whether or not you feel pain or pleasure. You basically care about what's going on through your mind. And then you learn to describe everything what's going on in your life using what's going on through your mind in the way that it just awesome all the time. Again, you interpret everything from such a perspective that it looks so great and so amazing. Not only for you, for other peoples as well. Not for all of them, but for some of them probably. I have speaking clubs once a week, and we discuss, like on Saturday we discuss some ideas, like this time it's consciousness, and on Sunday we discuss like we don't have a special topic for a conversation. We have a freestyle conversation. People come and I ask them what would they like to talk about, and they suggest some topics, and we talk about these topics, or we just go on and see what's gonna appear in our collective consciousness and talk about it for a couple of hours. And I would say that for me, most of these conversations are boring. And if I were a member of the club, so I wouldn't probably go there since it's not so interesting. I mean, I really don't experience some meaningful conversations. People actually don't like to talk about philosophy and language, and it's very hard to make them talk about. When we have a special idea, sometimes it may have certain certain what so it may be good, but most of the time it's just banal. But when I use my language, so for me it's like a conversation, it's only one level of communication. I also have my stream of consciousness during this conversation, and I pay attention to my thoughts, like not only to like what other people are saying, but how I perceive it and what like it makes me feel, etc. And then I also do like analysis of these conversations. And now I have a kind of goal, which is to learn to describe the conversations in a best possible way. So I train my language, my linguistic capacities, my writing by taking the real experience, which I have every week, twice a week, and I learn to describe it, not just simply describe it, but use the language so that I may make it remarkable, the experience itself, and I also may make it memorable. That next time, when after a year, I, for example, read this description of the meeting, which I had a year ago, I immediately recreate my experience, reconstruct my experience, and see. And it's just about language. So if I'm able to write a few paragraphs using uh, powerful language and good structure, good grammar, it doesn't matter actually what I write. It's just organizing words in sentences so they describe the real experience, but describe them in a certain way, which I like. So I like to like develop my language. It just sounds like sounds very good, and then you just train yourself to write, and then you see uh, things which may look relatively unimportant in the conversation, but then you say, oh, that's maybe very exciting to write about it. It's like this guy said that, and this guy responded in this way, and they both, and then you add some your own thoughts which you didn't express. So the people are talking about something, you add to this conversation like your own stream of consciousness, and then you like go on, and it's kind of it's very sophisticated. I mean, it may be very funny. It's like you may talk about, like Nietzsche here talks about Plato. Basically, he uses very peculiar language, and it sounds very unusual, and it's exciting to read. But we may also take some plain language and describe, like we may basically interpret what he said, like my language, for example. Now it's not, I know it's not so funny. In many cases, whatever I'm saying, it sounds kind of boring and dull. And I understand that. And we take like even the entire like preface and ask somebody else, like, how do you understand this preface? What would you say? And he gives you like 5, 6, 7 sentences, which is completely, nobody's going to read it. So if you summarize this, it's you destroy basically the whole preface. You destroy the structure, and the structure here, the form, that's what really makes sense. Not the ideas, of course, like the content as well makes sense, but most of the time, form is more crucial than the content. So if you have perfect form, you basically may take any content and make it attractive. Whereas if you have the greatest content, I mean, the greatest ideas, you may take again Plato, Aristotle, Nietzsche, Kant, Wittgenstein, whatever. You have amazing content, but you don't have form. You never learn to write and express your ideas in a kind of strong way. It's nothing. Nobody's going to have like Kant, brilliant philosophy, like brilliant ideas. Try to read like the Critique of Pure Reason. It's terrible form, impossible to read. Like, well, it's possible, of course, if you have enough intellectual strength, but for an average person, it's impossible to read. But if Nietzsche, for example, will write the critique of pure reason. Well, he will write it like beyond good and evil, and you just pay attention and you just enjoy it. So you see the difference is not what is the reality and your perception of it. It's like how you describe it. So you may describe it and use just extra ideas and emotions and put certain emotions in it which aren't here, and it may be very amusing and exciting. And you may take like real amazing experience, like somebody just what any kind of amazing experience you have. You may take wedding, like your wedding or whatever, the birth of your child, or any sorts of other experience which are important for you, like your love, whatever. You describe it in a dull way, and it's like greatest experience, but its description is useless. And then it's probably going to be also about, it's like the experience in itself is not so good as if you can describe it, it's probably you can't even enjoy the real uh, the real experience. So what's here in experience, like you always may add your stream of consciousness to the experience, and you may make any dull and stupid experience exciting and attractive by adding the stream of consciousness. And that's what, like, what you do in your do philosophy. Basically, you may make sense out of everything, but it requires a certain quality of your language. And develop your language, of course, is just studying language, studying new ideas, reading more philosophy, studying science, and studying your experience, studying yourself. Anyway, so far so good. I guess I'm going to finish here. So next time I'm going to start from this sentence. Yeah, I'm going to memorize this part which I read today. I guess it started. Where did it start? It started here, so it amounted. Yeah, I'm going to memorize this part, and I hope that next time I'll be able to finish this preface. Yeah, definitely, like we'll finish this preface. I'll memorize the entire preface, and then we'll go and do this studying stream, read the real book, chapter 1, Prejudices of Philosophers. Yeah, I really enjoy, like, there are some amazing paragraphs, like 20, 21 paragraphs dedicated to free will. Now I often think that no, I have to get through these first 10, 20 paragraphs to get to the paragraph of free will determinism, since they're so brilliant. I really like them, and I want to analyze them in the same way and talk about them for a couple of hours. Yeah, for me, see now, like I more and more feel as if it were the real communication with Nietzsche. So it's what I'm doing now. It's basically I talk to the camera, I verbalize my stream of consciousness, I read the book, and for me, like as if I'm really have a conversation with Nietzsche. So he says something, and I try to understand what he said, and I said something back, and then I give some examples from my personal experience, try to make my mind like trying to make up was the expression. No, I use an incorrect expression. Yeah, but basically I'm trying to borrow something from his language. So trying to understand what he means by this or that term expression. So try to borrow his form to understand how he like developed such an amazing form. And yeah, it feels as if it was a work conversation. I'm curious, like if I go through the entire book, would I be able to develop a similar style, like writing style in English? Would I be able to understand like language as well as Nietzsche could understand it? We'll see. Anyway, so now I guess it's time to finish. Yeah, I guess tomorrow. I'm not sure about tomorrow. I'll try my best to make another study stream tomorrow. But if I wouldn't feel good, I'll postpone it for another day. That's all. See you. Bye bye.